Welcome to the Backyard Professor Responds videos. I've just spent the last 4.5 hours listening to the brand new full interview of Jake Barber with Ross Coulthart, and I have taken notes. I treated this like a college class where I sat and I took notes on the highlights. Trust me, there's no way I'm going to give this interview away, but I am really impressed. I am reassessing. Actually, I reassess all the time. I reassess everything I think I know constantly. That's the only way forward. Never rest on what you think you know. You'll be bypassed overnight. You constantly have to relook at material. This interview, the full interview, this is what they should have done instead of that documentary 5 days ago. This interview has it all. I laughed, I cried, I was thunderstruck, I'm in awe, I'm a little bit mad at parts of it. I am overwhelmed with this interview. This interview has it all. And I'm going to give you the highlights. 2 hours and 50 minutes. This is sensational. Ross Coulthart, you've redeemed yourself in my opinion. Jake Barber, I'm keeping my eye on you, man. This guy really is the real deal after all. So, I call it like I see it. Doesn't mean I see clearly all the time. But I'm telling you, if you haven't watched this interview, this is on the must-watch list. Seriously. Lots of surprises. Let me read through my notes. Jake Barber retrieves downed UAP non-human origin aircraft. He's been in a skiff with Congress for 4.5 hours. They know what he's talking about. And things are in the works. Worked as a contractor for the intelligence agencies. Air Force Special Operations is what he was under. Air Force mechanic as a cover for his real work because he was in special ops. He was constrained by a DOPSer to not share some information that is justifiably classified. And I do believe his explanation of why there is some material that has to remain classified for the time being for national security. I agree. That's legit. I think Barber makes his case here, sincerely. But not all material. And the stuff he shares just blew me away. Far beyond what that silly documentary gave us. He was an Operation 4. He was one of the bad guys. One of his jobs was to test the good guys with effective testing by giving them hell to deal with out in the field to train them for any situation. And he was very good. He was Rambo, and he helped train several of our armed forces. Top tier 1 operator training equivalent with his information, his skill sets, all of the special fields that he operated in and went to school for and worked through. He had no previous knowledge of UFOs until he got involved in this UAP non-human origin aircraft retrieval. So he was out chasing war criminals in Bosnia. 9/11 changed everything for him, he says in this interview, and he'll tell you why. He went to California as an independent contractor, and that led him into this UAP contract, private contract, working with picking up these vehicles. In California, he worked on weapons technology that disabled weapons and aircraft, pulse microwave weapons specifically. He is not an experiencer in his earlier days. He loves the Constitution. The ideas in the Constitution are paramount. He made that crystal clear. I love you, man. We are told there is no evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, and he is in a position now to be able to refute that silly claim of the Pentagon. There is evidence. So he says. Is Congress being misled? Coulthart asks him. A lot is being withheld from them. He's not happy about the situation, but they are getting more and more information with up-and-coming whistleblowers. The Pentagon said no engagement with extraterrestrials on Earth. There is no evidence. He says that is completely false, 100% false. You know for a fact that there are aliens? Yes, 100%. There are aliens. There are alien craft? 100%. Yes, and I've been involved in the recovery of those craft, he says. No financial benefit for this second interview with Ross Coulthart. He wasn't paid to do this. He came out on his own. He wanted to add much more information for the people who saw the documentary, and I'm very glad that he did, because the documentary didn't help me a lot. This interview changed the whole game plan. Now I'm on board. Really. Very interesting. Although I do have some beefs that I will share with you. Why are you speaking of this then? And he says, well, because I have good news for you. A lot is going on in the past few years that has not been seen by the public, but that doesn't mean we're not busy working on this. So we YouTube content creators, let's keep right on trucking, baby. Keep pushing. We are making a difference. And that's an exciting part to be a part of. We will bring the evidence in a private capacity with venture capitalists. Several billionaires are beginning to back him because they're tired of the bullshit too. So he's got the finances and he's got the program. And he talks about that a lot in the second half of this interview. Are you a front? No, this is not a propaganda disinformation campaign. No. So how can we be sure this isn't just some kind of a disclosure operation? No, it's not, but I can't make you believe that. You just keep watching what I do in the up and coming months. Okay? We will do private retrievals of alien technologies. That's his new company. And we have the backing for it. Did contractor work for the DOI and the DOD. My role was security and transportation, he says. U.S. tech is better than we think, however, he said, so that's interesting. We saw objects that had some of the 5 observables without question. The majority of what we see and do is explainable, however. We know it was non-human tech on the first one we recovered. It looked extraordinary and anomalous. It was not human. It was a large white egg, no seams, metallic pearly white. We, in our private work, have captured sense data of the same type of craft flying in the sky. So they've got some data that they will be bringing out shortly. There are senior officials in all the branches of the government who are unaware of what is going on. The government, as if it's a single unified entity. Not really. That's that's what they want you to think, but it's not that way. It should be, but it's not. So there have been others who have had experience with this type of craft. This wasn't a unique one, only of one kind and one of a kind event. He's not the only witness to this. other whistleblowers are beginning to come out more and more now. We don't ask what was that thing based on a need to know basis. They'll tell you when he was working as an op. Now that he's in the private sector, all of that changed. Another craft was an 8-gon, he calls it, an octagon, recovered both day and night, usually after midnight. Getting close to the object to pick it up. Here's his experience again. Getting close to the object to pick it up, I feel really emotional. I feel the sense of my mother. Intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song. It was very disruptive of his mission. As I am hovering over it, there was an overwhelming sense of emotion. I felt like something connected with me, something tuned into me and my soul, and providing me some sense of guidance on how profound what I was doing was. It was so overwhelming, I began to cry. I'm confused as to why I am crying as well. I did my best to focus on the job. I about called it off. That would have been a disaster, etc. Bringing the object in was about a 20-minute flight. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I ever have been possessed by. It was loving. And yet, there was a sense of sadness at the same time. It was a very feminine energy, he says. I'll tell you that. It felt like the Spirit of God, but not in any masculine sense. It was like a feeling of my mother and my daughter and beauty. It was like a frequency that I was connected with, whatever that force was. Since that night, it has stayed with me. It's changed me. I'm more sensitive and aware person now, and we all need that. It happened telepathically. I do not believe that there was a being in the craft. I now know that there is a psionic aspect to the UAP program. I knew I was intuitive. I have a keen ability to make good decisions. The machine chose to connect to me. And yes, that's strikingly odd to me as well. I'm with you, but that's what the man says. I've had to do my pragmatic along with the intuitive psionic. This is either non-human intelligence, or we need to dramatically redefine what human intelligence is. That object, or whoever or whatever was controlling that object, was also connecting to me through my mind. So I got involved in my work now with what we would call the summoning side, as well as the operational side. Find a balance between the metaphysical and the day-to-day grind. He said it was a connection with a goddess. Is this craft working with a field of consciousness that perhaps humans can tap into, and maybe all beings in the universe can tap into? Psionics are being used in the government UAP program. Can we learn to communicate or summon with the UAP? Can it be controlled? Persuaded to land? All by deploying people with psionic abilities. I saw this happen, he says. They are more likely to be from a native culture because we are contaminated with our food, our drugs, and our culture. The native peoples are not that contaminated, and so they are more in tune. This doesn't help us be psionic or spiritual. There are people who can make a connection to a technology. He did not say a person. That there is really something interesting going on here. There are people who can make a connection to a technology. Westerners can't do this as well. This extra sixth sense is beautiful. The object I picked up, I think, was invited to land by the psionics team. They use meditation. They can contact the NHI and communicate with them. Very interesting. Now, this intelligence, therefore, seems to willingly share by cooperating with the psionics team. I think ultimately it is working for us. They are donating to us. Even if we weaponize it with this high pulsating radar, it's a gift from them to us. All the equipment used when the psionics team of the UAP program go to summon the UAP, their equipment has to be blessed when it's a psionic operation. Otherwise, the beings will not come to them. I know it works because I've seen it done. Hold on, I got to shut off my heater. This is one of the most interesting aspects of his entire discussion with Ross Coulthart. I know it works because I've seen it done with the psionic team calling the UAPs in. They communicate with them. When they communicate, the human psionic users communicating with the non-human intelligence say it is of a spiritual nature. It's something like angels. And there are good energies and bad energies. They may be programmed meat robots. We don't know if they are actual soft bodies and biologics. We don't know that they're like us. They might be meat robots. We just don't know. They may not be conscious, but it is ironically by consciousness that these UAP people, I'll call them people, beings, fly their craft. They fly their craft by consciousness. Ironic that the biological creatures inside are not conscious, but the craft they're flying is. Whatever is behind these crafts seems benevolent, loving. To communicate with it, you need to have a loving attitude. And just wow, Chris Bledsoe says the same thing. Everyone in the group of the psionics group, when they go to summon these craft, they all have to have the same loving coming from them, or if just one person doesn't do that, the craft will not show up. This is also what Chris Bledsoe has said. Everyone in the group needs to have this. Everyone who doesn't can throw off the vibe, is how he puts it, and communication won't happen. We are not alone. And it is not just the United States having these kinds of communications either. The United States government does not have a monopoly on UAP events. The skies are not classified. Your consciousness can't be redacted. So Ross Coulthart dropped an absolute bombshell of a question, and Jake Barber answered it. That just blew my mind. He met with Stephen Greer. Ross Coulthart asked him about that. Stephen Greer is 30 years ahead of everybody else on this. And the thing that he takes the most shit for is the one sure thing he's mostly right on about: his CE5 protocol to summon the UAP. That's a mic drop moment, man. What is real is to go into a meditative state and summon the ET and pilot the UAP, just like Steve Greer says. That is 100% real, is what Barber says. He also verified Mike Herrera's story. Another bombshell. Here is one that's going to make us think. Gay men, left-handed people, and I'm left-handed, children, and women have a better predisposition to psionic communication with the UAP than all other people. People from third world countries also have this predisposition. The name of his group is Sky Watchers. The NHI, the non-human intelligence, are guiding us, he says, in his current program. We don't care about the government secrecy, he says. The NHIs are guiding us to move forward. We need to know what we need to know, which is the most vital part of the entire UAP situation, is that it is a profound spiritual component to our existence. He said at the 2-hour and 35-minute mark that they, his group, the Skywatchers group, summoned a UAP, and he said it showed up. They used their psionic capabilities, they communicated with the UAP, and they came. It was in the shape of a white egg. With the data that they received on the traveling of the egg, the UAP, they calculate it sometimes went 3,000 miles an hour, and at other times it could be clocked at 11,000 miles an hour. And he said he had taken photos of this, and he is happy to show those photos. And so my question, which I put right in the comments of this interview, is, then where are they? If you're happy to show the evidence, then shut up and show it. Don't tell us you have it. That would be my only sincere criticism of this entire talk. Now, I get it. At this point, I'm coming across as pretty supportive, ebullient, happy, excited. The last 15 minutes of this interview is absolute pure electricity. I absolutely loved it. But the day of talking has got to become less, and you have to show the evidence. Seriously. So, in my opinion, this interview redeems Ross Coulthart and Jake Barber to an extent. I have to confess, it was a beautiful interview. It was marvelous. I was just stunned out of my gourd. There were some disappointments in it. There are some areas where we still need to work on. But the interesting thing to me in this interview was the enormous amount of work that really is going on behind the scenes with people in the private sector who are tired of the bullshit from the government, and they're going forward, and they're not waiting for the government to tell them what's going on. They're going to begin summoning the ET, and they're going to have their own evidence to show. Now, that's the proper protocol. When is disclosure going to happen? Why are you waiting for those who's been lying their asses off to you for 80 years? You really think that's going to change your mind? You really think that's going to make something real? Hell no. It's like I've been advocating. Go find out yourselves. What in the hell is stopping us from finding out ourselves? If we learn how to love in our hearts, and we practice the meditation, then you can summon them for yourselves. And then you'll know. You're not going to know just because Donald Trump stands up there and says, oh yeah, UAP are real. Who cares what the president says? That's not going to make anything different. We have much better ways of finding out their reality. Now, I, for one, am, again, I'm going to give a pushback here. I mean, damn it, we need some evidence. Come on. You can't keep saying, well, yeah, we shot good photos just last week. For the love of all that's holy, put those damn photos on the frickin' internet already. Quit telling me about it. Show me. Show me. Come on. Come on. That's my criticism. But I will confess, fabulous interview. Tremendous excitement on how fast this thing is going. And the shock, Steve Greer's right. Son of a gun. He's 30 years ahead of the game. No joke. Jake Barber came out and supported him. So watch the interview. It's incredible. Sincerely. So thanks for watching my Backyard Professor Responds update. I don't dare make any clips of anything that Ross Coulthart produces because they hit you immediately with copyright strikes or claims or whatever. They will not let you use anything. So that's why, like a good student, I took notes so that I could give you the gist of what I found impressive, which was from the start all the way through to the end. So go watch that interview and be prepared to be amazed. It was pretty impressive. All right. Thanks, you guys. I will catch up to you just as soon as I can.